has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast.
And we are back, Ferrall, coast to coast, here on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. It's great to have everybody with us here today. Before we continue on, we always have to let you know that you just have to get the new SportsGrid app. I don't understand why you haven't already done it, but you need to get the new SportsGrid app. It's available now both at the iOS and the Play stores. You can track scores and live odds, stay up to speed on all the latest content from your favorite hosts, like Joe Lisi. You can follow him. I mean, clips of him going nuts about Donovan Edwards. You can watch or listen to it on the app. That's right, watch SportsGrid on the app. Or you can listen to SportsGrid Radio on the app live, including Carver and Lisi weeknights at 8 p.m. East. So once again, available at the iOS and the Play stores. It is smarter to be on SportsGrid. You can go to sportsgrid.com/watch to see all of the platforms where you can find us. Okay, Joe, let me finish off the Harbaugh stuff from last night. Next, I've heard people talking about this even leading up to the game, and now that they've won it, that there could or should be an asterisk, Joe, on this because Michigan are cheaters with all the Connor Stallions and the sign stealing and blah, 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 blah. Here's Jim's response to all of that.
The off the field issues, we're innocent. And we stood strong and tall because we knew we were innocent. And I just like to point that out. And these guys are innocent. And, yeah, overcome that. It wasn't that hard because we knew we were innocent. So, yeah, that's really what I want to say. It went exactly how we wanted it to go. It went exactly how we wanted it to go.
Yeah, Joe, I don't think that there's no dopey asterisk or anything like that. They won the national championship. First of all of their biggest wins came after the nonsense that came out, whether that be the Penn State game. I mean, they lost their coach like 45 minutes before kickoff of the Penn State game. The Big Ten strung them along for that. They beat Ohio State without him. They beat Alabama. They beat Washington. Shut up about asterisks, Joe. There's no asterisks on this season. Michigan's the national champion. I don't believe everything he says there. Like, we did nothing wrong and no blah, 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 blah. They won the national title, Joe. Enough of the nonsense.
No, agreed. Stand tall, Carver. Stand tall. It feels good. We were innocent. No, I agree. Listen, that press conference alone, the way he said that, leads to a little bit of we knew we were caught, but it had no bearing on the game. I mean, come on. That defense contained Michael Penix. They forced him to work down the field. They held him well under his in-game 292.5, only allowed one touchdown pass. That was a quarterback that threw for 430 yards and multiple touchdowns in regards to the semifinal playoff win over Texas. And they held him to one touchdown and less than 270 yards in that ballgame. Great defensive effort.
No doubt. Great defensive effort indeed. We welcome in all of our radio affiliates for Coast to Coast on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty. SportsGrid Radio, Sirius XM 159 and Sports Byline. Great to have everybody with us. Last one, Joe, of course, is the question about the future, the NFL. Will we now go and try to get the Super Bowl championship? Then he can really up his brother, right? Brother's got the Super Bowl. Jim got both, Super Bowl and the national championship. He's not quite ready, apparently, Joe, to talk about all that yet, though. Here he is.
I just want to enjoy this. And I hope you give me that, Can a guy have that? Does it always have to be, what's next? What's the future?
Here we go.
Like I said the other day, I hope to have a future. Hope there's a tomorrow, a day after tomorrow, a next week, a next month, a next year.
Now, I get it, Joe. You got to ask. I understand that. But I also understand what he's doing there. Like, he just won, what was probably 45 minutes before he sat down in that chair. Like, this has been a lot. There was a lot for him to get. This is the school he went to. He played quarterback at this school. He came back there as the savior to be the head coach. They wanted him fired, Joe, 4 years ago, right? I mean, they were throwing him out of Ann Arbor, and now he sits here and he has won. I completely understand him wanting to enjoy it at least for a night, and then tomorrow he can get back to today, tomorrow, get back to Don Yee fielding phone calls from Josh Harris and and Mark Davis and all these guys around the league, because those calls are going to come, Joe, and he's going to listen to every single one of them.
Absolutely. And you know what they did last night? They ran it right down their throat.
They ran it.
I love it. The physicality.
You love it because you hit big tickets. That's why you love it. You love it because you have the bread truck out now, Joe. That is why you love it so much. I don't blame you for that.
Get the hat on a hat. Get a Dabo on the phone. Get the hat on the hat.
Yeah,
that was great. That was old school football.
Did you cash in on the Edwards prop? No, Joe, I didn't cash in on the Edwards props. We do this out every time a championship is won on Coast to Coast. Joe, we just don't let it lie. We have to immediately get to next year. So next year, things will be very different. We go from 4 teams to 12 teams in the college football playoff. You talk about, I know I got on Michigan a lot this year, Joe, for their schedule. Can't get on them for their schedule next year. Michigan next year plays, I believe, Texas, Washington, Oregon, USC, Ohio State, and a couple of others. So if Jim does come back, right? Joe, I don't believe they play Penn State next year. I'll have to double check that, Joe. But with the new Big Ten scheduling, I'm not sure they're there. But here are the odds for next year's college football national championship, which will look a lot different than this year with the format. Georgia, Joe, 5-1. Alabama, 6-1. Ohio State. Oh, there's Michigan. They're 4th. Oregon, Texas, Mississippi, LSU, Clemson, Florida State, Penn State. No Washington on there, Joe. I guess there's not a lot of faith in who did Washington bring in? Who'd they get in the transfer portal to replace Penix? Who's going to be in Washington next year? Somebody decent, right?
No, they didn't get anybody yet that I remember. Now, Oregon got Dylan Gabriel, and there's been a bunch of transfers that have come over. I saw Poffenberger from Albany went to Miami.
Who?
You got he's the FCS leader in
Will
terms
Rogers. Will Rogers is going to Washington.
That's not a big time.
That's who's going. And they're trying to get Cam Ward, too. They were trying to get Cam Ward out of Washington.
That would have been a disgrace. That would have been a slap in the face. You transfer from Washington State to Washington. They got Will Rogers. Will Rogers, let me tell you something. He's a human turnover machine, especially in big games. In that offense, he'll struggle. I'm telling you. Will Rogers with DeBoer, there's no talent there. Meaning like he doesn't. He's not going to have a majority. He's not going to have the best wide receiver core like Penix had. That's the problem.
That is the problem, Joe. Be a lot of fun next year. You know that I'm excited for the 12-teamer. I think it's just a lot more big-time games that we're going to have down the stretch. All right, Joe, we'll come back, and we need to start to get into this coming weekend, Wildcard weekend, Joe. NFL playoffs are here, and we move towards that. Ferrall Coast to Coast on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty. SportsGrid Radio. We're back right after this.
Quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
San Francisco
-120 to win the NFC Championship. It's the Cowboys with the second best number. The Eagles at 7-1.
What the hell's the difference between the 6 and the 7 seed? I need my guys healthy here to make a playoff push. They took the bye week and still won the football game. You want to talk about two franchises going in the wrong direction? The Eagles, ridiculous what they did this week.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
It's a lot of fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, a Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back, Ferrall, coast to coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here. All right, Joe, NFL playoff times this year. We know that. National championship done in college. Now we should decide the champion on the NFL side. There are 14 teams left. Super Wildcard weekend. We have 6 games spread across 3 days coming up this weekend. Now, I haven't talked to you, Joe, since the weekend. This is the first time. We didn't have radio last night because obviously you were doing the College Football Today special with the game. So before I dive into these games, what stunned you? Obviously you were very upset at the Jaguars about how they let you down on Sunday. What a gutless effort by them in Nashville against the Titans. Other than that, Joe, I don't think there was many surprises. How about the way the Bills played in the second half against Miami, Joe? I haven't heard you talk about that yet either. Just anything from the weekend that caught your eye.
Well, we'll start on Saturday. I think the big thing was how Pittsburgh grinded out that victory, have won 3 straight, and Mason Rudolph has single-handedly turned around that offense right now. Mike Tomlin, all he does is win, right? So that was the biggest thing from Saturday, along with Houston stepping up. And I'll just say this. DeMeco Ryans, in my opinion, to do it with C.J. Stroud, to do it with a very young rookie type of team in a complete rebuild, to take that team to a double-digit season, win the division, go to the playoffs. I mean, Carver, that's a testament to DeMeco Ryans. In my opinion, I would give him Coach of the Year based off of that. Nobody else did it with a rookie quarterback. I know Joe Flacco, but we're still talking about a quarterback that won a Super Bowl as opposed to a complete rookie that every draft guru try to bash as not being NFL ready. So I'll just say that. And then on Sunday, Jacksonville. This was a team that was 5-0 on the road, okay? They lost their last 3 road games. They lost their identity. Trevor Lawrence is just as much to blame as Doug Peterson because he got away from the rushing attack.
Lawrence was awful.
Trevor Lawrence is a human turnover machine. I don't care about the ankle or whatever was bothering him. You had multiple 3-interception games that cost your season right there. That was terrible. And then the other, I'll put a cherry on top. You knew I never liked Miami in terms of that ball game against Buffalo. Mike McDaniel, his team is gutless, and I'm a Dolphin fan. In a big spot, the defense never steps up. McDaniel, stop worrying about records and try to build the physicality for your team because they suck, all right? I'm a Dolphin fan going back to the days of David Woodley and Don Strock, and I could say it. Your defense in a big spot never stepped up. Kansas City, Philadelphia, Buffalo, and Orchard Park. You only beat teams that are mediocre and in your building. When you get punched in the mouth, you never hit back. I said it.
You said it, Joe. Two things there. Number one, you're absolutely right about the Dolphins. In fact, if not for mistakes by the Bills really were moving the ball, but I feel they probably should have won by 3 touchdowns, to be quite honest with you, in that game. The way that the game was being played, and they were able to sneak it out at 21-14-2. The series for me that I was thinking about you the whole time, 28-20, the Jaguars had the ball inside the 5 with a chance to go in, get the touchdown. Travis Etienne didn't touch the ball once, Joe, in those 4 downs.
Right.
Down inside the 5-yard line.
Why?
Didn't touch the ball once. Not a carry, not a pass, not anything. To your best offensive player, it makes no sense. And Lawrence was awful in that game. Awful. He was awful down the stretch. They were 8-3, Joe.
I know.
I'll give you an I said it. I told you 3 or 4 weeks ago that they were going to lose out. And I said it. There you go, Joe. I get to give you an I said it. I said it to you. So there you
kicked
go.
in the teeth by Tampa Bay, kicked in the teeth by Cleveland, kicked in the teeth.
Tampa, what a mess that game was. Can the guy hold on Carolina, hold on to the football at the goal line, Joe? I mean, honestly, going in for the touch. Can the guy hold on to the football when he's going in? Let's get to the playoffs, Joe. You mentioned Houston, and what a job by D'Amico Ryans. They win the AFC South, of course, and there were some nice numbers with that, Joe. We talked about those in late November with the plus 750s and the 8-1s when Jacksonville was 8-3. But either way, they win it now. They will have the Cleveland Browns coming in NRG on Saturday. First game at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Here is D'Amico. We've done a lot of big things here, Joe, but we got a lot more work to do. We can't be happy with just this. Here he is.
Yeah, our guys understand our goals and what we set out to accomplish. As I mentioned earlier, like just as true competitors as we all are, right? And we talk about all the time, we didn't come this far just to come this far. Yeah. Everybody's excited, happy about the division. I mean, congrats. Now we have to move on. We have to continue to play football and go win games in the playoffs. That's what it's about.
I understand what he's saying there, Joe. I'll say this to you later. I know you like this guy, and I know you love this quarterback. And you're right. You did do the I say it with C.J. Stroud. You loved Stroud over Bryce Young last year when it got down to draft time. You thought that he would be the better NFL quarterback. Spots like this, though, Joe, as much as D'Amico wants to say that, these are the type of spots where historically, when you get into the playoffs, the rookie head coach, rookie quarterback, young team combination can sometimes get a little swallowed up, especially when you're playing a really strong defense like the Cleveland Browns are going to bring to Houston on Saturday.
No, that's a great point, Carver. I guess the concern is, let's not forget these teams met, in October, November, and Flacco had the
3 or 4 weeks ago. 3 or 4 weeks ago, Joe.
That was the 264-yard performance by Amari Cooper,
that was the Amari Cooper game. Yep.
So
no Stroud in that game either. That was Case Keenum who played in that game.
Right. So the matchup is, what does D'Amico learn from that first game to potentially handcuff, from a defensive perspective, Joe Flacco? Does he mix up coverage? This will determine how good of a head coach D'Amico Ryans is in his first year, because we see like a defensive-minded head coach like Dennis Allen. Warren Sharp talked about it on Pro Football Today. When rematches, all he does is step up and win ball games. Let's see how good D'Amico Ryans is from the secondary perspective going up against Joe Flacco. It's a tough matchup. My heart says Houston, but, again, you have the veteran quarterback with the better defense. I lean to Cleveland. I picked Cleveland 20-1 to win the AFC, so they got to get through this game. I really don't want to bet a side, but I might jump in on some prop. If I had to bet it, it would be Cleveland. It would be Cleveland.
Browns -2.5 right now. 44.5 is the total, Joe, which they smashed a few weeks ago, and that's because the Browns scored so many points. They flew through this number. I feel like it's going to be a different game. I feel like the Browns defense is going to be able to step up. I know I'm going to show you some public numbers later. I know everybody's on the Browns this week. I understand that, yes, everybody's on the Browns. But, Joe, I think they're the right side. I just do. Just for, all the things that I was saying to you before about backing all of those. And listen, Flacco could easily go out there and throw 3 or 4 picks, Joe. He could turn into a pumpkin at any moment, and you know it. It can happen. So that's something that you definitely have to be careful about. That's for sure. All right, we're going to get into the rest of these games, Joe. We got Davis coming up next. The Dolphins and the Chiefs are the next one we're going to talk about. We'll hear from Mike McDaniel after we talk to Davis. I'll get you started on it, though, here, Joe. This is a tough ask. Coming off a Sunday night game, they got to play Saturday night in like -5, -10 degree weather in Kansas City, missing half their defense, getting guys back on offense who haven't played in weeks. That's a tough ask for Miami on Saturday night, Joe.
It is, and that's why I don't care what total they tack on this. I think I'm going to be up, and away because, again, Carver, I know
you
it was
think Kansas City's going to score a lot of points. You think Kansas City's going to score a lot of points?
I think they could get into the 40s.
Oh, wow. Joe thinks they're going to blow them out. Wow. Joe thinks they're going to hammer him, huh? I'll give you all those numbers later on, Joe, for the Chiefs and the Dolphins, and we'll do the other games for Wildcard weekend as well. We got guys getting chopped, too, that we have to talk about. But next, Davis Maddock, the Lion's Share, Ferrall, Coast to Coast on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe for Scotty. We're back after this.
Fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, a Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Quarter of the man his dad was. I'm sorry, he's kind of an embarrassment. The only thing I'll give him credit for, which is the only thing he's ever done right in his life, is get that team to Las Vegas for $6 billion.
The teams that bring in a lot of transfers, well, I was talking to Jeff about this, they need time. They're at a point now in conference play they can start to get rolling.
Ferrall, Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We spent all offseason where the NFL said, hey, just so you guys know, running backs don't matter. If we then this year give the MVP to a running back, the irony. I am disappointed that they lost to FAU because secretly I don't really like this FAU team very much. I don't know, they're just not for me. And now they've completely legitimized the Owls.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football full circle, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network.
We'll look at the Heisman Trophy
The early line.
and what it all means. Individual success.
You should have tried to get something for Anthony Rendon. Not bought at the deadline.
Newswire.
We're getting a lot of news, trades, cuts, and some movement in terms of starting quarterback, backup
Ferrall,
quarterback.
Coast to Coast.
I want to watch great players
make buckets, and win games.
Game time
You
decisions.
have no idea what the heck the Blazers are doing and what they need.
In-game live.
Just
Prime
took 'em
time.
yard for a grand slam.
The bottom of the fourth inning in a 12-2 baseball game. We got football scores going on at Wrigley right now.
Sports Rage
That was
Late
good betting.
Night.
We waited for 1.5. We got paid
We
for
did.
information. Didn't like the 2.5. Jumped on
There's
it.
no taking weeks off in golf betting ever. These are the best weeks to bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The brighter the lights, the bigger the stakes. Hunt or be hunted. Know your prey. This is a whole new jungle. This is The Lion's Share. Brought to you by BetMGM.
And we are back for El Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us. BetMGM is getting ready for Big Game 58. That is right. Bet $5 and you get $158 instantly. What do you got to do? Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android or visit BetMGM.com. Sign up and deposit at least $5 into your newly created account. Place a wager of at least $5 at standard odds price. Once you have placed a bet, you will receive $158 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your wager. You got to use bonus code SG158. BetMGM getting you ready for Big Game 58. Bet 5 and get $158 instantly. Go and do it now. Speaking of BetMGM, it is time for the Lion's Share, brought to you by BetMGM. And we bring in Davis Maddock every day here on Coast to Coast. Of course, Fantasy Sports Today, Saturday mornings here on the grid. All right, Davis, we have a lot to accomplish today. Of course, we will get to your NBA plays for tonight. But the NFL playoffs are here. And fantasy's done. Now, obviously, there's fantasy stuff for the playoffs, too. You can get involved in all this.
Sure.
But I love markets like this that show up the week of the wildcard games. And that is most receiving yards, rushing yards, passing yards, and even the touchdowns, receiving, rushing, and passing for all the players that are going to be in the playoffs. We know the trick here, Davis. You got to try to pick the guys who you think are going to get to the Super Bowl, which means play the most games, and be able to put up the most numbers. And some interesting ones here because they have like CeeDee Lamb favored for most receiving yards. Cowboys clearly aren't favored to go to the Super Bowl. The Niners are, but he gets so much volume, Davis. Can he get enough in potentially 2 games where maybe he can win this? I like looking down the board at these, Davis, and trying to find some needles in a haystack. How about you?
Well, I would just say the easiest way to start trying to figure out where there might be some bettable lines here would be where does it not line up with the odds to make the Super Bowl, right? Because, you know, the reason why in these markets the Cowboys are juiced up, like the Cowboys are kind of the favorites for like all of these, like Dak for most passing yards and stuff, it's because to make the Super Bowl, they need to have 4 games. And even, let's say Dak plays 3 games, they lose the conference championship to the 49ers. That means, you know, Purdy and Dak would have played the same number of games. However, I would say, combing through this list, I got 2 that just immediately jumped out at me. It's like, there's no possible way that this can be the right number. The first one being Deebo Samuel being 22-1 to lead the entire playoffs in receiving yards. I mean, Look, he is the same price as Mike Evans, and, you know, no disrespect intended to Mike Evans or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but like the expected games for the Buccaneers is like 1.4 expected games. The expected games for the 49ers is like 2.5, I think, is based on the stuff that I was looking at this morning. I think I am going to go maybe take a trip tonight back across the border to go ship some money down there in Illinois on Deebo. And then I do think you can profitably bet Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce to lead the playoffs in receiving yards instead of betting on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, honestly, because, you know, they do get the 4 games if they did get there. And then actually maybe throw a couple bucks on Kittle at 50-1 most receiving yards. I would just want to get as much down on the 49ers as possible, honestly. I think they just walk through the NFC.
The Debo one absolutely stuck out to me when I first looked at it as well, because like you said, you're looking for a number that is a lot different than that team's number to get there or win the whole thing. And the Debo one clearly, because Debo can have one monster game in the 3 games potentially that the Niners play, and that might be enough. They could have a 180 game, a 190 game, and that might be enough to be able to propel them. I want to ask you about this one because I thought of this one too. On the rushing yards one, we're kind of gone from the days clearly of guys who are consistently getting 100, 125 yards a game. We have a few of those guys. I don't think Kyron Williams is going to go to the Super Bowl. I don't think the Rams are going to play enough games for him to get it. I think McCaffrey's a little banged up right now, and he's going to play maybe one less game than everyone else. What do you feel about Allen? If the Bills were to play 4 games and get to the Super Bowl, it's 28-1 to have the most rushing yards in the playoffs. If he does what he did the other night, which is in the 50 to 65 range for 4 games, and maybe McCaffrey and the Niners get picked off, I know there's some maybes there, Davis, but I think it's got some legs at 28 if you think the Bills can make the Super Bowl.
I mean, I don't hate it. What I actually like most rushing touchdowns better. You can get him 6-1 on BetMGM for most rushing touchdowns. I think if I was going to take that angle with a quarterback, because I think the first part of your statement is totally accurate, which is none of these teams. I mean, none of the Super Bowl favorites, the Bills, which team? I get really it's just the 49ers that you would look at and say they can't win if they can't get it going on the ground. And honestly, even the 49ers could probably win with McCaffrey getting like 40 rushing yards per game. But how about Lamar at 20-1? I actually don't hate that one either, because he also, I'm trying to think about this from a sweat perspective, and you could be sitting there in the Super Bowl and you're like, oh man, he's trailing McCaffrey by like 30 yards, and then the Ravens are at their own 37, and he breaks the pocket, he makes the linebacker miss, he hurdles the safety, like boom, 65-yard rushing touchdown. Like that definitely I think is part of what's fun. And I've been doing this a little bit in some of these playoff contests. You know who's got the easiest road to the Super Bowl? It's the Cleveland Browns, man. The Cleveland Browns have this absolute cakewalk if they get there with the defense. Now, obviously, I think the Flacco magic is probably going to run out. And if I was betting on that side, I'd probably bet Houston this week. But Jerome Ford is 66-1 for most rushing yards. I mean, they probably win the Super Bowl. I don't know. Do they win the Super Bowl one, or do they make the Super Bowl once out every 66 times? Like, I think they might. I don't know. That one feels close too.
One last one, and I want to get to the plays. I saw McCaffrey for 10-1 BetMGM has for Super Bowl MVP. Now, the Niners are plus 225 to win the Super Bowl. I mean, that you got to think good chance. That's a good one, because if they make it, he's going to be like even money, plus 150, plus 200 in that range. 10-1 now, if you're a big Niner believer, also feels like a pretty good one for McCaffrey if they can get that far. All right, Davis, let's do tonight's picks from you, the Lion's Share, the NBA. And why don't we start with Minnesota in Orlando tonight against the Magic. T-Wolves minus the 5.5, 217.5 is the total.
Yeah, so we were riding the Magic pretty good to begin the year. They were pretty kind to us. They have definitely leveled off now. You're seeing they're down to 21 and 15. Really what happened is the defense has stayed as good, but the offense has gotten even worse. Like we kind of thought like, oh, maybe the offense will get a little bit better. And the offense, I mean, they just have no one who can shoot. Like the defense is really good, but they just cannot shoot. And this Wolves defense, man, it is nuts. Like again, actually kind of like a lot of these other teams, you're waiting for something to change perceptibly one direction or the other. I mean, this Wolves defense, they are 2.5 points better per 100 possessions on defense than everybody, than the entire league. It's great. They are just suffocating people. The difference between first and second in defensive rating is the difference from the Boston Celtics at 2 to all the way down to the Chicago Bulls at 14 in defensive. I mean, it's nuts. They're so good. So we're riding the Wolves tonight.
The Pistons are home tonight. That's right. The 3-33 Detroit Pistons home for Sacramento. This was 11 earlier today. Now down to 10.5, 241.5 the total.
Yeah, Cade not playing in this game. right? Why would we be taking the Pistons? I mean, the first being just it is hard for me a lot of these times. Like we did this with the Hornets the other night. Although I lost one of these hilariously. I want to say I took the Jazz plus 15 versus the Celtics the other night. They lost by like a bazillion. But I'm just taking the home dog plus 10.5 here. The Kings are fine. You know, they're certainly not one of the 10 best teams in the NBA or anything like that. And yeah, the Pistons stink, but 10.5 points at home, East Coast road trip, it's a lot for the Kings.
Memphis is in Dallas tonight. Of course, it looked like maybe Memphis was going to slowly get their season back with Ja Morant. Now that's over. He's done for the year with the shoulder surgery. Luka and the Mavericks minus 8.5 here. 235.5 is the total now.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's brutal. It's brutal for the Memphis Grizzlies, and now they are going to have to go back into their bench again. They're playing, you know, your Conchars, your Johnny Gilliards, like they're the MASH unit again. And the Mavericks are one of the better, just overall offensive teams in the NBA. They're also playing these smaller lineups now because Derek Lively has been banged up. He's been in and out. That is going to trend itself towards an over as well. This is just kind of your classic, you know, no defense being played, over 235.5 on a Tuesday night.
And finally, the Raptors are still out west. They're in Los Angeles tonight against the Lakers. 5 earlier, now 4.5 for the Lakers, 236.5 the total.
Yeah, so the spots that I like to take the Lakers in are weirdly ones against teams that have good defenses that can't score. Because, I mean, I would expect this game to probably go under. But the Lakers are not going to have to feel like they're going to have to get into a boat race. It's just going to be a lot of LeBron, you know, backing these fellas down. Quickly's been playing pretty good, but this is your classic, you know, schedule win here for the Lakers.
Davis, let's cash him tonight. Tremendous job as always. I will see you back here tomorrow on the Lion's Share, brought to you by BetMGM. We're back coast to coast right after this.
The Lion's Share, presented by BetMGM.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
favorite. I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
San Francisco minus 120 to win the NFC Championship. It's the Cowboys with the second best number. The Eagles at 7-1.
What the hell's the difference between the 6 and the 7 seed? I need my guys healthy here to make a playoff push. They took the bye week and still won the football game. You want to talk about two franchises going in the wrong direction? The Eagles. Ridiculous what they did this week.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's a lot of fun to do because you could kind of, you know, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night, I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back. Ferrall Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. Of course, we've got Slam and Sammy in the mix as well. Spent some time with Joe this past weekend. We'll leave it. We'll leave it at that. Slam and Sammy spent some time with Joe, which is probably not good for him.
Let me give props. I'll give props to Sammy Yarnell because you're both Bills fans. Screaming out about the Shakir 2.5 receptions all night long. That's all I heard. Shakir.
Yep, and I was alting him up too, Joe. We had the alt yards on him. Too bad we didn't have anything else in that game, that's for sure. All right, let's go, Joe, to the Dawson Knox. You and Dawson Knox. I hope you played him for a touchdown also. Dolphins, who lost that game to the Bills, are in Kansas City on Saturday night. We briefly touched upon this before. Very tough situation. The Dolphins today pulling guys off the street. I mean, Justin Houston, a few other guys. They basically signed these guys out of witness protection who are going to have to try to chase Patrick Mahomes around in -5-degree weather. Let's hear from Mike McDaniel. We got to turn the page, and we got to turn the page quickly. Here he is.
The main focus is, transitioning from a game where guys really laid it on the line and fell short. We fell short of our goal going into the season to win the AFC East. But at the same time, does that matter? No, we're one of the 14 teams that still had games. Okay. So you try to harness all of your emotion, focus, and really thought towards coming together for that goal.
You're right, Joe. Where are the Hard Knock cameras with the Dan Marino stuff now? I don't see any of the Dan Marino clips with Mike this week. That's for sure. Not going to have any fun ones with him.
That pissed me off. Let me just say that. The face of the franchise, a guy that laid it on the line, at least made it to a Super Bowl. This guy's worried about bashing Dan Marino records when, again, every time on the road, his team hasn't stepped up. They're exactly a carbon copy of what we call about the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Dallas beat down a gutless Ron Rivera in Washington this week, but it's the same thing. Dallas beats up on mediocre competition on the road, and so does Miami. Whenever it's a step-up spot, they get crushed in the teeth. They're like Glass Joe. I'm telling you, alt, over, Mahomes, 350+, Kelsey, 150, 3 tutties, Swifty, whatever Swifties are there. And I'm a Dolphin fan. I can't back this team right now. Gutless.
That basically was a road game for the Dolphins on Sunday night, Joe. As you heard, the Mafia in the crowd down there at Hard Rock. Might as well have been a road game for them.
Carver, come on.
-4 for the Chiefs. Flat 44 with the total. Right. Sounds like Joe wants to go up, and away. With that, he thinks the Chiefs are going to clear the over by themselves. It sounds like.
This is like a 40-24 win. I'm telling you, like 16 points. Wow. We're going to alt this into where's Bernie Parmalee now? Where is he? We got no rushing attack. Devon A-Chain running left, running right in a critical spot. We can't do anything. We're pulling guys off the street.
Right. You got Mostert back this week. You got Mostert and Waddle back.
Come on, Waddle. Here we go. I love Jalen Waddle, but the defense sucks.
Sunday, the Buffalo Bills, who beat the Dolphins on Sunday night, this past Sunday night, will now host the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're the 2 seed in the AFC, and if they win, they'll host another game the following weekend, which we like a lot. Sean McDermott likes that a lot too, Joe, because he loves when his team gets to play in front of the Mafia in Orchard Park. Here's McDermott.
Well, our fan base, Maddie, I think that's number one, right? Playing in Western New York, who knows what the weather will be like. We'll see how it turns out this Sunday at 1. But to play in front of our fans, it's tough to play here. Excuse me, and going on the road, it's tough. I can tell you in the playoffs, it's when you're trying to run a play on offense and you can't hear, you can't communicate and get everybody on the same page. That's a daunting task right there on the road. So it's nice to have that at home. That said, we've got to make sure that we execute and we are ready to go in terms of our level of play this weekend.
Yeah, Joe, this is a major opportunity for the Buffalo Bills. Left for dead, 6-6. Now they have home games and a division win, which is massive for them, trying to get to the Super Bowl. Go ahead, Joe. What do you want to say to me? What is it before I give you the Steeler numbers? What do you got for me?
Yeah, it doesn't matter, Carver. This is the bet this
it doesn't
weekend.
matter. Oh, this is it. This is the smash your bookie with over the head with the hammer game,
Carver,
right? This is it. Bills win 31-3. There's no problem whatsoever. No,
Carver,
I'm not doing that. I will not partake in that nonsense. I'm not doing it.
I'll do it.
You go ahead and have
9.5
fun.
is light.
So.
This is Buffalo
10.
light. 10, 14,
10.
16. Hey, steel curtain. What do you want? You want 16.5? I'll give you 16.5. You're going to get smashed in Orchard Park. Here's the thing. Sean McDermott, middle part of the season, he didn't know if he was staying or going. He was sitting in front of the desk. He had Windows 2010, no football helmet. Then when they were 6-6, he moved to the couch to do these press conferences. Hey, honey, how many bags you got? Give me 2 bags on United for $70. Then all of a sudden they went on a heater. He wins 4 or 5 straight. He's back at the desk. He got a helmet there. You got a flower, a plant. He's staying. He's back in 2024. All things are peachy. They're going to smash the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have no shot. Pittsburgh, no shot. I'm talking to you, Steel Crew. No shot to win this thing.
What are you doing to me here? What are you doing to me? I really hope you're not just doing this just to try to get me upset. I hope you're not doing this just to try to get me upset. That's all. Here's the thing, Joe. I think if it was going to be a nice, clear, 45-degree sunny afternoon in Buffalo on Sunday, I think that they probably would cover the 10, and I think maybe there's even a chance they can clean the 36.5 by themselves. Sure. That is not going to be the case on Sunday. We're looking at snow. We're looking at 20 to 30 mile per hour winds. We're looking at but Joe, so what? I want no business. Bills have had problems covering double digits against the Patriots, the Chargers, and these teams last week. Me personally, Joe, I don't care if they win by 1 or they win by 50. I need them to win. That's all that I care about. I think it's an under game because of the weather. The number's telling you that it's an under game. But maybe it's under, Joe, 24-3 Bills, like type of under game. It could be like that.
Yeah, it's going to be 31-3, the way they beat down on Dak Prescott.
So
under. They take the under. All I know is this. It's going to be bad weather. You got a mobile quarterback for our friends out there in Canada. Mobile quarterback in Josh Allen that's going to run it all over the yard. He had 61 yards on the ground. And you want to see Mason Rudolph revert back to his days in Stillwater, where every now and then he was a little shaky? This is it on the road against a very physical defense. The rushing attack isn't going to be there. Mason Rudolph can't run. And this is it. Najee Harris is not running for $122 on that front 7 in Orchard Park. Just not happening. I'm telling you. Breakout game for James Cook. Cook all over the yard.
Here's what I would really like, Joe. This is what would really be good for me.
Can I throw out something?
If they could just maybe not make this a major sweat. Like last year they messed around with Skylar Thompson and they made it a problem. The year before that was the year before that, I guess, was the Phillip Rivers Colts game. Wasn't that year where they
Well,
that was a
2 years
scare before. That was 2 years ago. But I'm saying these wild card round home games, they've won them, but they have been sweats. I don't want that this week. Take care of business. You've been given something that you had any chance at 6-6. Go and take advantage of it and make this nice, clean, and easy, and get ready for the Chiefs the following week. Yes,
you're
Joe.
right. And I'm going to throw out a prop bet because I thought I could get this on Sunday night.
An early week prop bet for Joe. All right, what do you got for me?
Well, with Murray and inactive, they threw in a little Lanny Fournette. Did you see Lanny? 7 carries, big body, little bad weather, 7 carries, 20 yards. He was 7-1 to hit pay dirt on Sunday night. He might not get 1. He might get 2.
I'll go with you on that. I think you could absolutely see some playoff Lenny Fournette show up for the Bills. That guy's they have been keeping him, in there, waiting to unleash him. And I think that playoff Lenny, like you saw with the Bucs a few years. Joe, you're on to I'm with you on it. And as soon as they put the number up, I don't know if it's up already, I think we should go get it. Odds to win the AFC. The Ravens are clearly at the top. Then the Bills are the 2. It's kind of in the order, Joe, of the seeds, right? I mean, Ravens, Bills, Chiefs. The Dolphins are ahead of the Browns, but still the Texans are down there. The Steelers are the longest shot. You know who I'm picking, Joe. Go ahead.
And you know who I'm on. I took a Donovan Edwards touchdown prop with the Bills and Eagles to win their conferences. So
you have everybody.
Run.
You also just told us you have the Browns to win the AFC.
I do it 20-1. I have the Browns.
So you got a piece of everyone, Joe. You're rooting for everyone. It seems like. Tell you, there's a nice path there's a little bit of a path for a Bills Browns AFC title game in Orchard Park. If we can get there, it'd be amazing. We could somehow get that in a few weeks in the AFC Championship game. I would not mind that at all. All right, NFC side, Joe. Let's start it here, and then we'll finish it at the top of the hour. The Cowboys and the Packers is the first NFC game. That's Sunday at 4:30 East. We know the history, Joe, between Mike McCarthy and the Green Bay Packers. Won a Super Bowl there. Now, Mike is already started by he doesn't want to talk about his past with the Packers, but he spent like 5-10 minutes yesterday talking about his past with the Packers. Here's Mike McCarthy.
Last year, I thought it was important for me to talk about, Green Bay in the beginning of the week. I did with the team. I regretted it. I don't think that doesn't even need to come into our energy base. So you live and learn. This game's about our commitment. It doesn't matter who we're playing. It really doesn't. I mean, I had no stake. I didn't watch one game prior to yesterday's contest in preparation. So just started last night on the plane, and that's where I am, and I think that's clearly where our team is. Our team, it's just no time for that. I answered the questions honestly in here last year about my experience up there. It will not help us win. So if it doesn't help us win the game, I'm not interested. I apologize.
He's not interested, Joe. He's just going to keep talking about it, but he's not interested in talking about the Packers from that perspective. The Packers are getting 7.5 points here, Joe. 50.5 is the total. I know you're on the Packers. You don't even have to say a word to me. I haven't talked to you this week. I already know that you're on the Packers because I just know that you're going to let the future do the talking here. I think that this seems like the kind of spot where the Cowboys might bully a little bit, Joe. And I think they're going to cover the 7.5.
Well, they might. I'm on the Packers, but I'm also going to take it back with the over. I don't see how any way this game goes under the 49.5.
I'm with you. I think this is, you were trying to do that with that other game. I'm going to do that with this game. This is the no doubt about it, flying over 50.5 with these two teams. I think the Cowboys are in the 30s. I think the Packers are in the 20s. No problem. We're coast to coast on a Tuesday. Carver, Ryan, Joe for Scotty. We're back after this.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I
favorite.
don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
San Francisco minus 120 to win the NFC Championship. It's the Cowboys with the second best number. The Eagles at 7-1.
What the hell's the difference between the 6th and the 7th seed? I need my guys healthy here to make a playoff push. They took the bye week and still won the football game. You want to talk about two franchises going in the wrong direction? The Eagles. Ridiculous what they did this week.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's a lot of fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back for El Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. All right, Joe, it is time for this day in Carver High history. We started in 1972. The Bucks snapped the Lakers' 33-game winning streak. That was led by Kareem, who, of course, would then go to the Lakers and win tons of championships. 1977, Super Bowl 11. Raiders beat the Vikings 32-14 as they carried Madden off the field, Joe. You can hear the NFL Films music right now as we talk about that. 91, baseball bans Pete Rose from being elected into the Hall of Fame for betting on baseball. I think it's about time we turn that one around, right? Considering what we've got going on. 2012, Alabama beats LSU 21-0 in the BCS national title game. That was after, Joe, LSU beat them. I remember there was a lot of controversy that year. LSU beat them in the regular season, correct, Joe? And then they still put them against them in the title game. Bad job by the computers that year, Joe.
Yeah, that was Jordan Jefferson. You know where I was that year? I was in Caesars back in the day.
Caesars back. Look at Joe. Listen to him. 2017, a hell of a game. Clemson beat Alabama 35-31. The last second touchdown, Deshaun Watson. Who do you throw that one to, Joe? Who'd Watson hit at the end there to win that for Clemson? Come on.
Who
hit, Joe?
Hunter
Renfrow. Offside down in Tampa, 35-31. Final seconds to win it. And in 2023, that would be 1 year ago today, Georgia mauled TCU 65-7 to win the national title. What a difference those games are. One of the best national championship games, Clemson, Alabama, and the absolute worst, which was Georgia and TCU last year, Joe.
Bowers had a good game, though. We hit that.
Bowers had a good game. He certainly did. You hit that because, like Donovan Edwards last night, I can't bet player props in New York, Joe. Can't bet college player props in New York.